uplift people. The Rebbe said that's our mission. To uplift people, especially those who others overlook. Yeah. So, and we just did a song about that. That we call it invisible diamonds. It's a quote from the Rebbe when elderly woman, she asked the Rebbe how he stood every Sunday giving out dollars for so long, and he said, when you're counting diamonds, you don't get tired. The Baal Shem Tov said each Jewish person is like a child born to parents of old age. Each one, So God doesn't have favorite children. He doesn't have favorites. Everyone is a diamond. So that was the idea. But however, some of them, get interviewed. Some of them get trophies. Some of them get awards at dinners. Some of them, and then others are invisible. You just walk right past them.
Welcome to Ordinary People with Extraordinary Stories. I'm Chana Weisberg, host of this podcast. Joining me today, we have a very special guest, Rabbi Shmuel Marcus, who is together with his brother, he founded the amazing Eighth Day Band, and he is also a shliach, a Chabad shliach in California. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us, Rabbi Marcus.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little about how it all began, how it all came about. First of all, your band. Let's start with that. How did you start? How did you and your brother decide to make this band Eighth Day?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on this wonderful Chabad.org podcast.
We're so excited to have you.
Chabad.org is so necessary. I know I can't say enough about it. I use it every day. Yes. I use it every day. I do the Rabbi Gordon Rambam and Chumash. She's fantastic.
We want to hear that this is what inspires your songs.
There's a lot of Chabad.org is tremendous. But I would say like this: Chabad.org has all the information that someone would need, but that's really not where the magic happens. It happens in the reader, in the viewer. Right. So you could have all this knowledge. If it doesn't change your behavior, it doesn't affect your life, then... So Chabad.org is very important, but the real miracle, the real action is in humans, ordinary people. That's what I like about your ordinary people. Very, very well said. Yeah.
Well, I think the magic is also, especially, what I love about your songs is how you take such deep concepts and you just bring them, you give them light, you give them life. You just bring it and make it so applicable to people's lives in the most artistic way. I love how you do that. So
thank you. Yeah. And I know Chabad.org has some of our music on there, and I appreciate that. One of the things I do realize is, besides the fact that 90%, 99% of what we do happens in the audience, happens with the reader, I know you're an author, right. If you write a book and no one reads it, are you an author? I don't know, maybe, right. So the reader, so who does more for the book industry, the authors or the readers? So if there's no readers, right. So it's almost the readers do more. I don't know. That's for someone else.
Absolutely. Right.
If you interview my brother, he's the author. He can talk about that. He's Rabbi Shmuel Marcus from San Mateo. He's up next. He's fantastic. But I would say in music, for sure, that we actually have what's called a rehearsal, right? So there's a theater, there's a stage, there's a band. You do the exact same thing in front of empty seats, sound check, rehearsal. And then you do the exact same thing again with an audience, and all of a sudden it's a show.
Right.
What's the difference?
Right.
The difference is the viewer is makes it happen. So I really, as we perform in more and more places, I start to really appreciate that more and more, is that the performer, the speaker, the author, they're doing, right. Yes, a little bit, but it's all really happening in the viewer. And what you mentioned about songs and Hasidic ideas.
I just want to say about what you said, like even more so, I think, I know as a speaker, I get so much energy from the crowd. Like it helps me to bring out much more of my ideas when the crowd is so thirsty for it. Whereas if a crowd is just sitting there, not like stonewalled, and they're not reacting to what I'm saying, it doesn't bring out so much of yourself. Do you feel that way with your concerts as well?
Yeah, for sure. That's the idea. If there's students bring out the teacher, the things you
100%.
had no idea that you were even a teacher until there was students. So
Right,
yes,
right,
an audience can ruin the show if they're not
right,
interested, looking at their phones. the
right, for
the
sure.
band loses energy.
Right.
That's for sure. But I think there's something that might even be bigger than that. When you're giving your lecture and you're connecting with someone,
Mm,
um, essentially what you're doing, hopefully, is really, people know what they're supposed to do, right?
mm.
I know I should do push-ups. I know I should eat healthy. I know that, right? So when you
Right.
go to one of these inspirational speakers, you go to a show, you're reading a book. Yes, there's new information you're getting, but what's really what my job as a rabbi, what my real job is to somehow figure out how to allow the information from the guy in the crowd that he already knows, but it's not
Mm,
impacting his behavior, how to kind of inspire that. So there's a sort
mm.
of inspiration in Hasidic thought, because I went to yeshiva with your uncle, Rabbi Ezra Shochat in Los Angeles. One of the
Right,
things
of
we
course.
learned there is in Hasidic thought, there's this idea of the narrowness of the neck. So it's basically you have the information in your head, but to get it to your heart,
Mm,
it kind of gets stuck. So I know I should
mm.
do push-ups. I know I should eat healthy, but I'm eating salami, and I
Right.
understand. So what's going on here? How do you bypass that sort of traffic jam from information to behavior? So one of them is music. Sometimes
Mm,
music can I don't know how the brain works. That's for a doctor. So, but there is somehow that it just bypasses the rational mind and it just affects the heart. I always tell people with the tefillin of the head has these straps that go down to the heart. That's kind of
mm.
helps get the information. I don't know if that's true, but it sounds cool, but it looks
Right.
cool.
Right.
But that's the idea of a performer, of a rabbi, of a public speaker, author. Is really, besides the information, is to somehow open up their hearts.
Mm.
And, maybe that's why you do so many songs, so many books. You already wrote a book. Why you need 6 books? Like, what are
Right.
your 6 books about that you need a seventh book? This guy wrote 100 songs. Now you got another song. What do you?
Right.
Sometimes you just need to like dial so many numbers till your heart picks up.
Right.
We try, we work, and that's the idea. So I'm at this point where I believe the magic happens when the viewer, the reader, and the author, you know they somehow open that pathway, and beautiful
Mm.
things happen.
That's
That's
beautiful. That's
Yeah.
really
Thank
nice.
you.
Do you ever feel that you become inspired by your songs more because of your audience? Like I know sometimes when I speak and I see people really get excited about it, it makes me think, hey, there's really like this is real truth. This is something
Yeah.
that's deeper than what I'm not just saying it anymore. It excites you more. Do you ever feel that way?
Yeah. I'm not sure if this is what you're saying, but I guess you would say rabbis are preachers. We preach about
Right.
faith. We preach about, yes, bitachon. You must trust God. And we preach and preach. And then when something happens to you, um, you realize preaching is much easier. It's much easier to
Right.
preach about faith than to have faith when you're in a crisis.
Mm.
So when you see people who
Really take
overcome,
you and
yeah,
really take seriously what you're saying or your
they're
songs, and it makes an impact on them. You say, "Wow, this song is even more powerful than I realized."
yeah. This morning we got an email. We have this song. It's called Tracht gut wird sein gut. It's
Love it.
Yiddish for think positive, it'll be positive, and it's from the Chabad Rebbe's, where someone had a child who was ill and was obviously very concerned, very worried, and he wrote into the Rebbe, this is what's happening. And the response was to Tracht gut wird sein gut, to think positive and it'll be positive. And in our own experience when we were younger. Our sister was diagnosed, and we had to lean on to the Trachgut with Zeingut method, and we wrote this song, and it's one of our early
What
songs.
was that when you wrote it, when your sister was diagnosed?
Yeah, after that, it was in
Really?
response to that. I find that most songs are in response to something. You
Mhm.
know, that's what I find that's the way it works for me. I know other people can maybe,
Right, 100%.
yeah. So
So
it's a
y
response,
so you were leaning into that, think positive, and that's why
right?
you wrote it. Right.
Yeah, and
Was
then
it a good was it a good ending?
so Baruch Hashem, she's doing very well. She lives in Maui, and she's has a kosher farm. She's doing her thing.
I know that
So
sister. She was in my seminary in Toronto.
there you go. She's
Yeah, there you go.
probably
She's
your
a
top
great
student. Probably was your top
absolutely.
student. Yeah,
She was great. She was really great.
yeah.
Yes.
So I got an email this morning that someone's going through a difficult time and they're listening to this song and it's giving them strength. So when you see people who are able to take what's out there
Mhm.
and use it in their own life, that is amazing. Because just because you're an author, not you
Right.
particularly, I'm sure
Right.
you're excellent, but some authors, can write about being calm under fire, but they're just not calm under fire. So it's like
Right.
you can write and compose. That's the easy part. It's
Mhm.
using it in real life that you get inspiration from people who are successful at doing that. And that's why, I think your ordinary people is a very good idea. You bring ordinary people, they're just like
Right.
you, everyone's
Right.
struggling, everyone's
Right.
doing their thing.
Right.
And it gives everybody inspiration, to keep doing what they do.
So is there like a general theme for your songs about what issues you're going through or what challenges or any kind of issues that you're going through that runs through your songs?
No, I would say as a general rule, and I've heard this before, is that people who, let's say, they want a hit,
Mm,
they want to, can you rate me a hit? So some people will go
mm,
to songwriters, write me a hit. And essentially, they're not interested in the song. They're not interested in
mhm,
music. They're interested in a hit. They're interested in
mhm,
success. It's like what is the
mhm,
point of this podcast? What's the point of this
mm.
podcast? To get a lot of views. You want views? What do you?
Absolutely, for
Yeah.
sure.
What are you going to do with those views?
No, we
Chabad.org
wanna
cashes in the views. What do you do with the views?
right, of course, we wanna inspire people, for sure.
Exactly. Even one
Yeah,
person, if you did this whole podcast and one person somewhere says, you know what, this really helped me in my own actual life, boom, worth it. But if you get like a
absolutely.
billion views, who cares? What are you going to do with views?
Right,
So
right.
in our society now, especially uh, the younger world, I know it changed. I think in the 80s, they did a study. They asked college students to rate you can look this up, it's on Google, to rate what's more important: money, fame,
Mm,
health. I don't know. So apparently
mhm.
fame was like third or fourth, whatever. Now it's like number one. It's before money and health. Like
Wow.
what is
I guess
fame?
right,
What are you going to do with fame? What are you going to do with fame? It's so ridiculous how we lose. So when
right.
it comes to songwriting, the same thing. If your number one point is to have a hit and have a million views, that might bring you in one direction. But if you just
Mhm.
want to do the right thing, you're doing something that you believe in, it's not going to be a hit. Those usually are the hits, actually. So, in my
Right.
experience, if you're trying for a hit, people are going to realize you're trying for a hit, and it's not going to strike a chord. If you're authentic and you're real, people might connect with that. I'll say one thing about
Right.
songwriting. I don't know if you want to talk about songwriting. I do.
Sure, of course.
Yeah,
Sure.
love it. Love it. Is that I heard this somewhere. I forget who. I usually like to quote who I heard it from, but I can't remember. That is, songwriter's job is to really articulate what the listener has been meaning to say their whole life.
I love
Like
that. Yeah.
exactly. So if you can say it, it's really what's happening in their heads. You know.
Mhm.
Anyways, so that's that.
And you're saying it in such a catchy way that catches on and that they can't help but think about throughout the day
Right.
when you're singing it, right?
Right. And we have this mission, obviously it's Chabad.org's mission, I'm sure, is Hafotzas Hamayonis, to spread the well springs of Hasidic thought, of the Baal Shem Tov. And how to spread it. A lot of people think it's to the right and to the left and to Morocco and to Australia. Like you think of this, you sort of this distance. But really, spreading Hasidus also means to spread it from the intellectual realm into the emotional, into the, I always say that, rabbis will start a speech and they'll use a specific tone, And this week, we know that when I hear that tone, I tune out. I tune out because that's not how people talk. So you're not
Right.
actually not talking to me. I don't know what you're doing.
Right.
And therefore, what do you?
Right.
So that happens sometimes in our vocabulary. We use, when the divine light was constricted into contractions and the esoteric essence of the subconscious, like what? So
Right.
Hasidic thought somehow was stuck, is stuck in this world of
Vocabulary.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's like, and also when you hear that, it's a part of your brain. When you talk about the esoteric, mystical side of Shabbat, where the Tetragrammaton really shines forth, and all that, there's a part of your brain that hears that. But when you hear that your friend got punched in the face, you're like, what? It's a much deeper.
Right.
So to spread the well springs, we need to spread it not just to the academia, spread it to that visceral, what? You got punched in the face, like that. So that's really what I personally try to do, is bring these esoteric ideas that we grew up on and continue to study. Obviously, that is the greatest gift we have, and to put it into relatable words, and hopefully inspire people to go back to the original and look it up. That would be the best.
Right, that's beautiful. I know, but there, even in the way that you write it, though, there's like so many layers to what you write. Like you can understand it on so many different levels. It's almost like you're reading poetry when you. I remember me and my husband were driving once, and he's like, we were listening to a new song. I don't even remember which one that you wrote, and he's like, I got to look it up. I got to see the written
Mhm.
words. Like I want to see it line by line because there's such depth to it. So, you
Well,
know,
thank you. That's good. I'm happy that I got two listeners there. That's
yeah,
great.
right,
But there
right.
you go. This is the perfect example. It almost doesn't matter what I was thinking when I wrote it.
Mm, mm.
Apparently, when you hear it, it has an effect. There's even songs. I heard a quote once. Also, I don't remember from who, that he listened to like a European, an Italian song. He didn't speak Italian, and he cried. So
Mhm.
obviously,
Right,
you don't need to be a great
right,
lyricist to do that. The guy doesn't even
right,
speak their language. So there's something
right.
that music can do that opens the heart, and all of a
Mm,
sudden, you hear what you need to hear. So I think that's really the job of a rabbi, of an author, a
mm,
musician, is just open their hearts and let them hear what they need to hear. They know what they need to know. They know what they
mhm.
need to know. You just, open it
Open the
up for
heart.
them. Yeah.
Right. Wow. Wow, incredible. So when did you decide you wanna open the hearts of people? When did you decide to form this band, and how did that come about?
Not really sure that it was
Decision?
a conscious decision. Yeah, I'm not too sure about that.
It just
Um,
evolved?
yeah, I went to yeshiva, like I said, by your uncle, and I was actually a what do you call those, rabbinical interns? Chabad has these
Mm.
rabbinical interns that go out, and I ended up going to Kharkov, Ukraine. Rabbi Moshe
Oh, wow.
Makovich. I just saw him at the international convention. Great guy.
Mm,
He's under fire right now. God should bless him and that community.
mm.
So, I got to do that. And then my dad and my parents, they were Chabad emissaries in Florida in the 60s, late 60s. Florida right now is very Jewish. They were, there back when it wasn't. They built the
Right.
infrastructure. So you're welcome.
Right. Right.
And then they moved to California. So I grew up like all my siblings in a Chabad house, basically, and
How many
that was our
siblings?
path. Kenohara, my parents have 10 children.
Wow.
My oldest brother, he's in Mission Viejo. He's got a Chabad house there. Got a brother Chaim. He's in L.A. He's doing his Chabad work there. My brother
Mm,
Yossi, the author. I don't know if we need to go
mm.
through all the
No, we don't need
siblings.
to. Right,
Okay,
right,
you can look that up.
right.
It's
Wow.
it's
Okay.
important.
And what was it like to grow up on Shlichus in a place
So
where there was not much of a Jewish infrastructure?
yeah, I don't know. I don't know anything else. That's the thing. It's hard
Mm,
to, my wife, she grew up on Eastern Parkway, a few
mhm,
doors down from 770. So
mm,
she grew up like you couldn't. I mean, the only thing closer would actually be living in, 770. She's like as close as you can get to the action. So people from out of town who would come to see the Rebbe would stay there. They were just extremely close to headquarters and very involved and stuff like that. So
mm.
for her, to come out here to Southern California, she sees the difference. But
Right.
I grew up here, so I don't know. I don't know what it's like to grow up and not be the only, Orthodox kid on the block. I just don't know. So
Was it a
that's
cultural shock for her? Was it hard for her?
you'd have to ask her. I know her parents were shluchim in South Africa. She's obviously very familiar with the Rebbe's idea of sending people to faraway
Mhm.
places. But you'd have to ask her. I'm sure she has her own take on it.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but there's something very, I think, very wonderful to be able to say, you work for the Rebbe. I mean, come on, what's better than that?
Right.
It's like
Right. Sure.
fantastic. It has its challenges. It's has a lot of challenges and a lot of blessings.
Where in California are you on Shlichus
Orange
exactly?
County, Orange
Orange
County. So
County.
LA, where your uncle is,
Mhm,
about 30 miles north of here. And
mhm.
we actually just bought a building for our Chabad house. Mazel tov,
Oh,
mazel
wow.
tov. We
Mazel
have a
tov.
massive building. Can I plug my building campaign?
Absolutely. Go
So
for
you
it.
definitely go to jewishlosal.com. That is our building campaign. We are doing terrific work. We're doing the Rebbe's work. You want to support it. Thank you. Yes. This podcast
Absolutely.
was sponsored by. Do you have sponsors on this podcast?
Right now, no, we don't. We
Uh-huh.
just do it for the inspiration.
Hmm.
Yes.
Well, this one could be sponsored by the building campaign for Chabad Lo Sal,
Sure.
man. It's
Absolutely.
important.
Yes. Definitely directed to
Amazing.
that
What
for
do you have?
sure.
100,000 viewers on each of these? How many do
Oh,
you get?
oh, that
Yeah,
that's very small. That's a small
minimum.
estimate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us a little about, I mean, you're a shliach, you're also a composer, you're part of this 8-day band. What does your average typical day look like? Juggling all these different parts.
I would say right now my day is primarily driving carpool, driving
Carpool?
because we don't have a Jewish yeshiva in this area. So LA is a big Jewish community. We have a beautiful Chabad school there. So I
Mhm.
have to drive.
And
Um,
lots of traffic, right?
there's
Lots of
lots of
traffic in
traffic.
LA.
So when I'm in the car, I get to listen to number one, and I suggest everybody do this. Listen to Rabbi Gordon, his Chumash, his
Right.
Rambam. So entertaining. I know he passed away a few years ago. His jokes are still relevant. He's got these great
Right.
anecdotes. He's fantastic. So I was listening
Just
to him
do
this morning.
daily study on Chabad.org. It's
Yeah, daily
fantastic.
study on
Yes.
Chabad.org while you're driving. You could put it on double
Mhm.
speed. If
Mhm.
anyone's listening to this on double speed, good for you. You're busy. You're important. Go do it.
Right.
Um, you
So
know,
how long is the carpool?
it's at least an hour each way. You know,
Wow.
yeah. Then I'll come back. I have some people here. We'll do a prayer. We do some tefillin with people. We do the regular Chabad stuff. We have a Hebrew school on Sundays. My
Mhm.
wife teaches that, and we just started. This is breaking news. This is breaking news. You caught me on a good day. We are
Amazing.
opening today, actually. I know this is going to air, some
In
time
a
from
few
now.
weeks
But
from now,
so a
right.
few weeks ago, we
Right.
opened what's called the Chaim Counseling Group, and that is licensed therapists that are Jewish faith-based. So it's you're going for a kosher, someone who's licensed but also has that Jewish values. and it's in honor of my late father-in-law, Chaim Meir Lieberman, who definitely dedicated his life to counseling people, and he had his specific style in how he did that. He definitely was able to open people's hearts very quickly.
Wow. So you're very into opening people's hearts. This is your mission.
Yeah, to uplift people. The Rebbe said that's our mission.
That's all our
To
mission.
uplift people, especially those who others overlook. Yeah.
Right.
So,
For sure.
and we just did a song about that. That we call it Invisible Diamonds. I would
Oh,
suggest
wow.
you whatever you're doing, just stop and go listen to that song. It's about people that are overlooked, invisible diamonds. But obviously, you got to listen to it to. So let me
To
plug that
understand.
song as well. Yeah, Invisible Diamonds.
Right. Invisible Diamonds.
Invisible
Wow.
Diamonds by Eighth Day. Yeah.
What made you think of that?
It's a quote from the Rebbe when elderly woman, she asked the Rebbe how he stood every Sunday giving out dollars for so long, and he said when you're counting diamonds you don't get tired, something
Mm.
like that. I don't know if that's the
Mhm.
exact quote.
Mhm.
Close enough.
Right.
So
Right.
the idea that everyone is a diamond and everyone's basically the center of the universe. People assume
Mhm.
that God can only have one center of the universe. Like you have your
Mhm.
only one favorite restaurant. God can have multiple favorites. God can have multiple people that are the center of his universe. Each,
Right.
the Baal Shem Tov said, each Jewish person is like a child born to parents of old age. Each one, you know.
Mm.
So God doesn't have favorite children. He doesn't have
Mhm.
favorites. Everyone is a diamond. So that was the idea. But however, some of them, get interviewed. Some of them get trophies. Some of them get awards at dinners. Some of them, and then others are invisible. You just walk
Just
right past them.
overlooked.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's the idea of the song, that the Rebbe really saw everyone. It's just knowing that you're seen, and it's just, first of all, knowing that you're a
Right.
diamond is good, but knowing that also
Right.
people see that.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I think that's
I
important.
l- I like that. I really like that. So, like, how do you come up with the song? Do you sit down and say, "Oh, I'm going to write a song now," where I just learned something that really inspired me, or it just hits you one time? Like, where do you come up with your songs? Do you sit down somewhere and write it, or does it hit you while you're carpooling? Like, when do you think of it?
I don't know. I don't have like a specific process. I can't tell you how. I could tell you how not to, is when you're just wanting to do it. You're like, okay, I need, let's go, let me force it. That
Right.
usually doesn't work.
Right.
Um, but I think if if you're true to yourself, if you really believe in something, that's going to help. If you're writing a book or whatever,
Hmm.
um, I know sometimes if you're too much an expert on a subject, you don't write the book on it because you know too
Right.
much about it. But
Right. Right.
anyways,
Right.
big news. We
Right.
could break big news here. So in our Chabad mission, so to speak, the idea of Hafatzas Hamayanis, spreading the well springs, the teachings. We try to do that through the music. We try to do that through meeting people. The whole, you know what I'm talking about. So we got an email not too long ago from Disney. That is a very
Mm.
big corporation.
Hmm.
If they have what's called from November through December, they have different um, groups for different cultures. And they wanted a group, they had a klezmer group representing Hanukkah, and they reached out to the Eighth Day saying, can you guys represent Hanukkah at the park in
Hmm.
November and December? And we said, sure, sure. So and we did it. We did it in November, we did it in December, and it was
Amazing.
just magical. Yeah, really, it was amazing.
Right.
And if you think about it, that's really, I mean, spreading the well springs outside. That's an incredible opportunity. So
Right.
why do I mention that besides bragging?
It's good to brag. No, it's
Good to
amazing
brag.
that you had that
It's
opportunity.
exactly is these opportunities. So it's
Do you
It's
have to worry about the business side of your business, like, of the band, getting there, getting your things out there? Like, you're talking a lot about the altruistic part of it
mhm.
and the inspirational part, but do you have to worry about the hits and the numbers and, that part?
I think the less you look at the numbers, the
Mhm.
better you'll be. You don't want to
Mhm.
just look at what then the crowd is controlling your who you interview. If you interview a certain type
Mhm.
of person, you get a lot of hits. They're controlling instead of keep your mission. What you want. Stick with that is probably the best advice. When we started out, a friend of mine up in LA, Moses Ophir, I don't think he's going to watch this. He's a very nice guy, musician, very talented guy. And he said, you're starting out, don't let the crowd change you. Don't follow,
Mhm.
you do you, which is very important.
Wow. How does it feel? I mean, you're such a famous star. How does it feel when you go out and people just idolize you because they know you from 8th Day? Does it go to your head?
Well, I'm not an actual star. It's a very small market that we operate in. So when I walk down the street here, when I knock on doors, try to get people to light a menorah, a
They don't
hamantash,
know.
they slam the door the same way. It's it's
But if you're
it's
gonna
a
walk down a
wonderful,
street.
yeah,
Right,
in an Orthodox community,
right.
is where we're most popular. But I would say it is definitely a blessing. It's definitely a blessing to be able to do what we do. No question about it.
Mhm,
I know you had Avram Fried on not too long
mhm,
ago. He is
mhm.
our uncle,
Yes.
and he is.
So much talent in one family. Wow, incredible.
Thank you. I can't take credit for that, but on behalf of the great grandparents, we thank you. But
Thank you.
he will always send a video, for example. A kid is having a bar mitzvah, someone's in a hospital, someone needs this. He's always sending videos. And also like this, like a minute later, you send him, we need a video for this. Yeah, because he understands that there's a value to the viewer. Okay, obviously it's not a big deal.
What do you mean? What kind of videos is he sending? I'm not sure
Like
what you're
happy
saying.
birthday, if there's
Oh,
someone
okay. Someone.
who's special, who
Mhm.
needs a happy birthday, someone who needs a cheering up. They're like,
Right.
so if you're in the Orthodox, what you would call rock star celebrity, you're primarily going to be asked to send videos, to visit
Mhm.
the ill,
Right.
there's a lot of that. And he is
Right.
most gracious about it and a great role model for
He
anyone.
spoke a lot. He spoke on here a lot about his
Yeah,
visits to hospitals and
yeah,
to people who are really in difficult situations. Incredible. Yes.
yeah. Once you realize that you have, it's not you. You know, there's this
Mhm.
there's this idea of, oh, this from free, this or that. Obviously that is in the viewer's mind. It's not in
Right.
reality.
Right.
So, but if it helps them, makes them happy, sure. So we'll send
Right.
videos, and it's, you can make. So I think that's a blessing. And I think anyone
Right.
who can do that should do it. It doesn't cost you
Right.
anything. You take a video, hey, happy birthday, great to see you, So yeah, there is a blessing to that. Um, and some
Is
downside to it, yeah, but there's some blessing to it.
is it all glamour? Tell us about the other side
Yeah,
of the
there's
industry.
there's different ways of making a living. One of them is staying at home and being with your family and being local. Another one is traveling the world. So I know,
Mhm.
Fried, for example, is on a plane every 2 minutes. He mentioned it
Mhm.
on your interview. He
Mhm.
missed some
Correct.
family events, so that it is very tough. It's very tough, and not for everybody, that's for sure. But
Mhm.
you gotta thank God for all your blessings,
Mhm.
appreciate it.
Right.
Even if you don't think it's a big deal, still, if some kid thinks it's a big deal to get a video from you, great. Just,
Right.
yeah, don't tell them. Don't tell them you're just a regular person. The last thing you want to
Mhm.
do is tell people you're just a regular person with a regular problems. So
Right.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. Okay. We can still have that idolizing of you.
Yeah,
You'll leave
people
it
people
intact.
assume people assume you're
Right.
always on with a spotlight, and you're always with the green room, and you're always this and you're
Right.
always that. It's like, Right. It's definitely
Right.
not like that. We're just regular people with the same problems, maybe more, maybe more. But the idea is God puts everybody where they're supposed to be, and gives you the tools to deal with your situation. And I'm preaching now. Let's see, this is preaching.
Right.
But
Right.
sometimes you preach so much, you start listening to what you say.
That's what I said. Yeah,
Right? Hopefully,
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Right. Are there
once
is it hard to be away from your family? Do you travel
very
a lot?
difficult, very difficult, very difficult.
How often are you traveling and away from your family?
I don't know if it's a matter of how often. It's people who
It's
travel for business. It's not only musicians. There's
right.
people who
Right.
travel for business. And it's
Right.
not a new thing.
Right.
You had this in the olden days.
Sure.
You know,
For sure. How do your children react to that?
you'd have to ask them. I know
Right.
they're. You know how at the end of the year Spotify gives you Spotify Wrapped. You know what I'm talking about? No.
No.
So never mind then. But we can scratch that. So Spotify is a way you can listen to Chabad.org. It's
Right.
an app, right?
Yes. Yeah,
So at the
absolutely. We're
end
on
of the
Spotify.
year,
Right.
yeah. So at the end of the year, it'll tell you who's your top artist. Like, who do you
Oh,
listen to the
okay.
most? So
Right.
my children were kind enough to share with me their top artists for the year, and not only was Eighth Day not on their list, it was not even in the running. So that
Oh,
should tell
wow.
you something. But it's
How did that
okay.
make you how did that make you feel?
Good. Made me feel
Good?
good. Yeah.
Why? Why is that?
Because, I don't want to be this overbearing parent that forces them to
Right.
just listen. Because I did that for many years. Basically, the way it works with a song is you start out with a demo,
Mm,
just the vocals and keys, let's say. Then you get the vocals and drums version. Then you get the vocals and so each version, and we're talking maybe 172 versions until you have the final one. My
mm,
kids had to listen to every single version
mm,
until it's so
mm,
at a certain point, I think I overdid it, and
mm,
they just got over it. Is this
mm.
another demo? Are you playing? And also, I did carpool. I was the driver. I controlled basically
Oh,
the DJ of my own
right,
car. So
right,
I control what goes on. But in the later years, these headphones that can block out sounds were invented.
right.
Now I can play whatever I want, and they don't even know what
They
it
don't have
is.
to has right,
So everybody
right.
has their own headphones. Yeah, I got
Were
great kids.
were
God
were
bless
you
them.
were you jealous of the people that they did have on their playlist?
No, not at all.
No.
No,
Why is
no.
that?
Because those people are probably never home. They're just gigging all the
Uh-huh.
time. So it's
Right,
yeah,
right.
exactly. You want to be a
You're
normal person. A
right.
lot of people, they want to be an expert at something. They want to be an Olympic ice
Mm,
skater. No, you don't. Okay, look at
mm,
look at what
mm,
happens to Olympians. They end up on a cruise ship somewhere. You don't want to be an expert. We had here in the Chabad house a expert violinist, like world famous, just tremendous. Apparently, he smashed his violin. He was so sick of
mm.
it. So
Wow.
yeah, you don't want to be, you
What
don't want to be such
why
an
did he smash his
expert,
violin? He was
because
so
he had to train since he was maybe 4 years old, and he had no
mm,
life outside of it. And he woke up one day in his 30s, and he had to practice for hours every day because he's competing Olympic level. I mean, that's
mm,
intense. So you look, you're
mm,
like, wow,
mm.
this guy's amazing.
Right,
He's got a gold medal. Yay. He's hating his life because it's overtaking him. So you
right.
don't, you want to be good enough. You don't need to
Right.
be an expert,
Interesting. That's a good way of looking at it, because
Yeah.
sometimes you just keep on feeling like there's other people on top of you in your field, and you feel that competition. So that's a great way of looking at it. So you don't feel
Yeah, you
that
definitely want to
challenge.
be better. You definitely want to challenge yourself to be better, But
You don't have
where
to.
you are might just be very good. You know,
Right.
don't.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
being unhappy is a
I
skill.
guess that's what's interesting about you also, that you are not just in the music industry. You're a full-time shliach. So your life is
Right.
so multifaceted with so many different parts to it.
I definitely agree with that. I think meeting people, teaching, when you need to teach something, as you know, you have
Mm-hmm.
to really study it differently. And then people
Mm-hmm.
push back, they'll ask questions. You really, that helps. If you just sit
Mm-hmm.
by yourself composing,
Mm-hmm.
you're very lucky. But
Right.
being in the real world, having real world pushback, definitely is part of it.
So when you want to relax, what do you listen to? When you want to listen to music, who do you listen to?
Hmm. Very good question. It depends on the. My kids usually suggest, like I'll say for the last many, 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 many years, my kids have controlled, um, have suggested different things. As they got
Mm-hmm.
older, they realized, what style would work for me. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I just like the quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Today's drive, for example, zero, just quiet, just so I could hear my own thoughts. Maybe,
Right.
that's
Right.
important.
Right. And do you prefer quiet or I mean loud or soft music? Do you prefer fast
Well,
or
now I prefer
slow?
quiet. Now I prefer quiet. It changes every day. You need something else.
Happy, sad,
Yeah, it's hard
both?
to say. It's hard to say. People say, "What's your favorite song?" or "What's your favorite
Mhm,
this?" What's your favorite food?
mhm.
Well, it depends.
Right, depends on your mood.
Exactly.
Sure.
So
Right.
the idea is how to, if you, music is really a tool to help people get inspired, to open their
Mhm,
heart. Music is a beautiful tool.
mhm.
Um, I mean, there's so much to talk about the music, but the point is that it's a beautiful tool and it has different things. If you need upbeat, you have upbeat. If you need to be, if you need to think about something a little slower. So whatever it is, people
Mhm.
know how to use music to their advantage.
Were you always into music? Did you train especially
I
for
mean,
it?
I think we didn't really have a choice. Also, this was not optional. We had Avram Fried. It was a mega star when we were children, and he was our uncle, and that's very important. And every new song came out, you had to learn it, know it, and my grandmother, blessed memory. This is Avram Fried's mother.
Mm.
When a new song would come out and they would play it, you couldn't talk.
Oh,
Unknown.
wow.
It's like
Wow.
it was almost like a religious experience.
Wow.
So yeah, so it was overbearing over. This was
Mhm.
the overarching uh, overarching
Theme.
theme in our childhood, which is
Mhm.
fantastic. It's a great thing. We were able to get involved with it, which is beautiful.
Do do
And
you do you want your children to get involved with it?
I know you asked that to Freed, and he said no, and I
Mhm.
agree with him.
Yeah.
My kids can do whatever they want. They are, adults. They can make their own decision. And, they
How many children do you have?
Kanohara, we have 5 kids and one daughter-in-law,
Oh,
Leah.
wow. Wow.
So this is my kids are very musical.
The
They're
youngest, how old is the youngest?
The youngest is 12, and
12.
he is, you know, he's still young.
Right.
I don't want to, publicize,
Right.
but he's his own. He's got his own theories in music. Let's put it this way. I consult
Wow.
with him. Let's just leave it at that.
Oh,
I
wow.
consult with him. I consult with all my
Wow.
kids. They're very musical,
Right.
very
Right.
wonderful. Yeah, but sometimes I embarrass them. I'm sure that's
What
probably
what why do you embarrass them? Because you're such a
not
famous
everybody's
personality?
dad is jumping around on videos on
Right.
YouTube. Some of our videos got millions of views. Like
Right.
not everybody's dad is like that. So I'm sure that's something, but
Mm.
that's
Right.
that's what it is. It is what it
Right.
is.
It is what it is. They gotta get used to it.
Yeah,
There
exactly.
you say you're inspired from the Rebbe's teachings. Could you tell us, like, one of your favorite teachings or something that you love that the Rebbe taught that really hits home to you and penetrates into your heart?
Yes, thank you for that. It's I studied the Rebbe's teachings in high school. I mean, like every yeshiva student, you start at a young age. But when you're 16, life is like is 16 years old. as you go through different life experiences and you start to understand a little bit more about the world and yourself, and your studies start taking on different meaning. So
Mm.
recently, I would say very recently, I've been rereading these teachings from the Rebbe, and they absolutely blow my mind.
Wow.
Absolutely. I think this is the most incredible gift that we have, is these teachings from the Rebbe that are just incredible. So there's these discourses, Maimorim,
Hmm.
and apparently there's like 1,500. There's 1,500 of them. And
Wow.
then you have Sichot. You have these talks, and there's over like the 40 volumes of that. Then you have Igris, you have letters, then you have Sichat Kodesh. I mean, it's so incredible. But you'll have this one liners. You'll have these one ideas that just blow your mind. I'll give you one. I can do
Hmm.
5 hours on this minimum. I'll give you one on humility. That's from volume 6. Very beautiful. Um, you always think of humility as something that happens in your head. Are you a humble person? I'm a humble person. He's a humble person. Like, who cares? Like, what do I care
Yeah.
if you're humble? Like, what does that do for me? Right? So humility, I always thought of something that happens in someone's head. Like, are you anxious? That's happening in your head. Are you humble? That's happening in your head. The Rebbe says, no, true humility doesn't care if you're humble. No one
Mm.
cares about you. Humility is when you look at someone else and you say, if this guy had the gifts that I had, he would do so much better. That
Mm.
humility is from Moses, where he looked at others. It forced him to look at others around him and see, oh, what does he need? What does he need? So
Mm.
the Rebbe's way he kind of views humility is really a way of seeing our whole life. Like, no one cares if you're humble. That's between
Mm.
you and yourself. There's a big world out there. So the Rebbe opens our eyes to people around us, kind of changes our focus. Happiness. You want happiness. You want happiness. Okay, great. You should have happiness. But what about your neighbor? What about your kids? What about
Mm.
this guy? So the Rebbe opens us up and he's saying that's how you're going to get happiness. Worry about someone
Mm.
else's happiness. That'll bring you happiness. Stop already with
Mm.
this. I'm humble. I'm happy. I'm hungry. It's like, what's in it for me? What's in it for me? That leads you down a very a difficult path. Just look at the world. Look at people going down that path. How many books are there? You're in the book sphere. How many books are there on how to find happiness?
Oh, it's bestsellers, right? So
Yeah, how
many.
many? 10,
Huge.
20, thousands, 100,000? A lot. So
Right.
obviously a lot of people are trying to get
Looking.
happy, you know?
Hmm.
And the Rebbe is like, exactly. If you're trying to get happy, it's not going to work. That's why you're going to have to
Right.
buy so many books. Try to make someone else happy, you'll find happiness. So it's really, the Rebbe's teachings really are so practical, so helpful, and I can't get enough of it. I
Mm.
cannot get enough of it. It's just, I would suggest Chabad.org has plenty, the Rebbe's teachings. Just, get involved, start reading. You'll find it. It'll find you, as you start.
Do you think that today's generation, we're very into ourselves and our own happiness and our own mental health and our own issues, that we focus too much on that?
I can't speak for this generation, but I definitely agree with that. I
Hmm.
definitely agree that the Rebbe's message about himself, that his whole thing is to uplift others. A lot of
Hmm.
people are trying to get to heaven. Here's a funny thing. There's within Orthodoxy, Chabad is a Hasidic sect within Orthodoxy. So you have regular, nice Jewish people who are Orthodox. They study the Talmud, they study the Torah, and I was in my 30s probably till I discovered that some people were doing divine commandments, mitzvot, in order to get into heaven.
Hmm.
And I was like, what? It blew my
Really?
mind.
So
Really? That's why you
you
do
didn't
mitzvot?
you
I've
didn't know
never heard
this?
that. I had
Wow.
never heard this before. I
Oh,
had gone to yeshiva. You
wow.
put on tefillin with another Jew, so to help him, to bring Mashiach, to make the world a dwelling place. in the Chabad, they have this idea of making this world a divine abode and making it a home for the
Right.
divine. That's the purpose of creation. So that's what we've been working on since, since fifth grade. Like the
Right.
idea of going to the world to come, to go to heaven and get a reward. It was so new to me. I
Oh,
mean, it's
that's
fine.
funny.
It
I
just
mean, that
blew
was
my
part of
mind.
my whole education when I was in Toronto. I mean, I was not in Lubavitch schools because there were none, right? My parents went on shluchos there. That was the whole educational system, of course.
I don't know. It just
It's
blew
so
my mind.
interesting. Yeah.
I always tell people it's like, what's the reward? Someone who treats his wife very, very well for 50 years, and they just have the most loving marriage and the best relationship, and he really is the greatest husband ever. What's his reward at the end? Does he get a toaster? Does he get a bumper sticker? He gets a T-shirt. What does he get?
A
What do you mean?
happy
What do you
wife.
get? You have a loving relationship for 50 years. What do
Right.
you want us to give you? A watch?
Right.
You
Right.
have it. So a mitzvah is a connection with God. You
Mm,
literally transcend being a human and you get to connect with God. Now, what do you want now? What do you want?
right.
What reward do you want? So it says in Ethics of the Fathers, exactly, the reward of a mitzvah, the only, it's like if it was a cake, right? You had a mitzvah cake. What cherry
Right.
can you put on top of a mitzvah cake? Can only be another mitzvah.
Mm,
So that's how we grew up. Is
mm.
the mitzvah is the reward. But anyway, what's the reward for being a emissary of the Rebbe? Okay, you're an emissary of the Rebbe. You work hard. You give classes. You buy a building. You're doing your thing. What's your reward? What is your reward? That's your reward. That's your
Right.
reward. You got to do that. So that is
Uh, but I guess when someone is struggling with what they're doing and they're struggling to do a mitzvah and they're not feeling that connection in
mhm.
their heart, then they're looking for something, what's in it for me? You're right on a deep
Yeah, I agree. I agree. There's a basic level where you start out as what's in it for me, and children are given sweets when they study, and you give your kid an allowance, and yeah. There's definitely that is a reality. I agree with
Mhm.
that. One of the Rebbe's teachings from the Haggadah, and I definitely should plug this. There's a artist in Toronto, Yehuda Lang. Guy is
Right.
fantastic.
Mm.
So I did a Haggadah with him in collaboration with Kahat, the Chabad publishing house. He did the art, and I wrote these little adaptations of the Rebbe's teachings on the Haggadah. Beautiful, beautiful. And
How long ago was this that you
maybe
did these?
maybe a year ago, 2 years ago,
Wow.
pretty recently.
So you really
And
are so multifaceted that you found the time for that as well.
I started with this. This is how I started out in publishing at Chabad. I was working there. So one of the teachings from, first of all, that is like the Rebbe's teachings on the Haggadah are life changing. Definitely check those out. So one of the teachings is about the afikomen. The afikomen is a matzah that we eat at the end of the Passover Seder. And one of the rules of afikomen, which means dessert, is that you have to eat it on a full stomach. That's one of the rules of eating the afikomen. So at our
Mm.
Passover Seder, you might notice it's the last thing we eat, right? Why? Because if you're hungry and you want to eat matzah, that's good. Eat matzah. You're hungry. The guy's hungry. Let him eat. But that's not afikomen. The
Mm.
afikomen level of service, according to the Rebbe, is where you're not doing it to get anything for yourself. You're not hungry for spirituality. It's great. If you're hungry for spirituality, go. Whoever's thirsty for water, let him go and drink. Let him study Torah. That's beautiful. But you do want to mature to a point where you're doing it because it's the right thing. You're doing it
Mm.
because that's what God wants. It's not for you. So the Afikomen type service is really what they were trying to educate us looking back. Why I
Mm.
never heard of it is because our teachers were trying to get us to a point where you do things because it's the right thing. And if
Mm.
that's your deciding factor in life, should I make this decision or should I not make this decision? Well, this is going to make me feel better. This is going to make me happier. That's usually not the right decision. This is going to make me poorer, angrier, and more stressed out. Yep, that's it. I'm going to do that one. That's usually how it is in life.
Right.
The harder,
Right.
more difficult decision. So I think if people take that teaching from the Rebbe, the Afikomen
Mm.
method, it's this
Mm.
beautiful teaching. Do the right thing because it's the right thing, really is where you want to be.
That's great. That's really great.
Yeah.
Were you always like that? Were you always a more optimistic kind of person who just wants to do things for altruistic reasons?
No, no.
No.
I'm just preaching. I don't believe any of this. I am the most selfish person. I have,
Of
I'm
course you do.
trying to get more gigs out of this interview. But why am I doing this interview? Why am I doing this interview? What do I
Because
get?
you wanna inspire people. Because you had because
Exactly.
you had pity on me. I called you and you said
Exactly.
yes. Right.
Exactly. So there's first of all, there could be more than one reason why someone does something.
Mm,
The inner reason, and they have this Hasidic term for it, the inner reason, the true reason, and then there's these secondary reasons. So yeah, the true reason is I'm hoping someone will see this and be inspired to study the teachings of the Rebbe. It would really be worth it for me.
mhm.
But the secondary, well, maybe someone will hire me. Well, maybe someone. But you don't want to be stuck in that secondary. It's fine as
Right,
long
right,
as you know it's secondary. Many times
right,
it flips and then it just becomes about I want to hit so I can get another. So I
right.
could. Oh my gosh, like people collecting mileage. They don't
Mhm.
use it for airplane. They don't use it for flights. They're just collecting mileage because they want more mileage. Want
Right,
more mileage.
right,
Then you're upside down. Know your
right.
purpose. Yes, you can have secondary reason. Yes, God will bless you, and there's many blessings for being a Chabad shliach. The Rebbe said that every person at Mount Sinai, God kind of deputized the Jewish people to be his emissaries on this
Mm,
planet. So if you're alive and you're Jewish, you are an emissary of God on this planet. So it's something
mm,
you can appreciate, and it comes with blessing. But you don't do it for the blessing. You do it
mm,
because that's your job.
mm.
So I think if everybody does what they're supposed to do, hopefully God will bless them and give them everything they need, health. I think Chabad.org is such a blessing. I've seen it start. I've seen it grow. Many people have seen
Right.
it. And so you're a
Yeah.
blessing. This whole Chabad.org is a blessing. And we should all be blessed to be able to do what we're supposed to do and make this world a dwelling place for God and bring
Amen.
the Mashiach.
Amen.
Amen. Exactly.
Amen. Beautiful.
Amen.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time. Is there any last thought you want to give to our readers besides for any thoughts about your future, what hopes and goals you have other than your building campaign that you're
Well,
working
yes,
on
of
right
course.
now?
Building campaign is right now front and center.
Right.
But definitely, I would suggest people look up Chabad.org, look up the Rebbe's teachings on different things. It's incredible. There's the Rebbe on mental health. A new book just came
Mhm,
out. There's just
mhm.
tremendous amount. It's a gift. It's free. It's out there. That's it. Enjoy it.
Right. And
Enjoy it.
what's any hints on what the next song is coming up?
Right now, I can't give any hints on that. We're working on
Secret.
something big, though. Yes, something
Oh,
very
wow.
big. Working on
Wow.
something very big.
Wow. Okay. Well, I wish you
We'll keep you
tremendous
posted.
success with that
Thank
and with
you.
everything that you're doing and to continue inspiring so many people with your music and your work
Thank
as
you.
a shliach. Your songs really touch a deep bond in a lot of people because of the depth of the message, and because I guess they're so filled with all these teachings that you are so imbued with that it resonates with people. So thank you for
Thank you
all that you're
very
doing.
much.
Wow, that was a great interview with Rabbi Shmuel Marcus. I loved his genuineness. He was so genuine. You could see that he speaks what he really feels, and he doesn't take himself too seriously. He laughs about himself, he jokes about himself. There's that humility. Sometimes you have people who are stars and they just think that they're this big star, and he is not like that at all. And I really, really enjoyed that about him. What struck me the most from this interview was, and in fact, even after the interview we went on, Rabbi Marcus continued to tell me different teachings that he was just so so passionate from the Rebbe and how it really affected his life. And I just love the fact that he takes these deep teachings, these deep understandings of things, and really makes it into a lyric, into a song where you can understand it and you could feel it and you could sing with it during your day and it could really enter into your heart. I really enjoyed how he said sometimes you have an idea in your head and you know what you're supposed to be doing, but it's about bringing that idea into your heart. And that's what really life is all about. And I guess the takeaway message from this interview would be to take one idea, one thought, one something in your life that you know what you should be doing, and trying to process it and bring it deeper into our hearts and our actions. If you enjoy watching these interviews, I hope you are subscribed to Chabad.org/extraordinary. I hope you're watching us as well on Spotify or any other podcast platforms. Please, please give us a like there, give us a 5-star rating, give us a heart, write a comment. We love to hear your feedback. And most of all, thank you so much for watching and for being part of this extraordinary community.